Do the Phillies need some servicing? Because Zach Wheeler, his start's getting pushed back 2 days. Ranger, he was fine until he got later into the game.
Mm-hmm.
So should we be concerned about the Phillies, or is this just part of the dog days of summer? Matt Gelb covers the Phillies for The Athletic. He joins us right now on 97.3 ESPN. Matt, welcome in. How you doing on this Thursday?
Hey, guys. I'm doing good.
So let's start with the pitching staff. Obviously, the Wheeler news, him getting pushed back with a huge story when it popped up yesterday. Did you feel like Rob Thompson's explanation about it, was it enough, or do you think there might be more to it than that?
I think there's always concern when you're talking about a pitcher on his shoulder, and certainly when that pitcher is Zach Wheeler. There's going to be a certain amount of concern. So I think it remains to be seen. If he pitches Sunday and it's fine, then there's no concern. But I think there's still a chance that he doesn't start on Sunday. They kind of left the door open to giving him another day or two if he needed it. And I think at that point, if he needs another day or two, then maybe they just end up giving him a 2-week break. I will say that, I watched him play catch Wednesday morning after Philly said that he was a little sore, and it looked normal. I don't know. I do think part of this is sort of the wear and tear of a season. I think he's been pitching through some soreness the last few starts. This time it was a little more sore than he would normally feel, so that's why he told them. I do know that they've been trying to get both him and Sanchez, extra days, or maybe skip them once if they can. But this is not like last summer when they had, a 7.5, 8.5 game lead in the division at this time in the schedule. They only have a 2.5 game lead, and the NL is so bunched up right now that, a few games here and there is a difference between, playing on the road in a 3-game wildcard series or having the 2 seed and having a bye from that 3-game series. So these games are important. It's not like they're in a position to just skip guys because they need to skip them. So we'll see what happens. But certainly there's got to be some concern.
You just mentioned about the past, and I go to my mind when Wheeler had that, elbow issue, general soreness back in 2022. They gave him some extra time off, and he came back and he was perfectly fine. So it seems like to me that, as long as Wheeler is, taking care of his body and everything, the extra time off will be fine. He should be good to go. It's just the concern, Matt, is this team is where they are because of Wheeler, Sanchez, and to an extent Ranger Suarez and the pitching staff, because there have been times this year, Matt, as you have seen covering this team, that the offense disappears.
Yeah, and I think I'll say this. They've done a really good job of keeping their pitchers healthy for the most part. They haven't had it all figured out because no one does, but as far as teams go in the league, they have a reputation among players for being able to keep their pitchers healthy and effective. And Wheeler has a pretty strong relationship with the training staff. And I do think that there's not a lot of hiding things. So, if they think that he's able to pitch and he thinks he's able to pitch, then he will. And if not, then he won't. And I think it's kind of as simple as that. You're right, that month in 2022 did help him. He was still pitching a little compromised. Remember at the end of the line there in 2022, he was. They had to give him some extra days in the playoffs. He was not totally right. It was he was definitely more hurt than he had let on. And we'll see if this is the same situation this time. I would assume that if it was, then he would have gone on the IL 2 days ago. So remains to be seen.
Matt, I want to shift to another member of the starting rotation. Aaron Nola made his second rehab start on Wednesday night. His velocity was around his average for the season prior to the injury. Is he progressing as the team had hoped, and what could be a possible return timetable for him?
Yeah, I think last night's start was encouraging, and the velocity was way better than it was in his first rehab start, and you can tell that he was clearly building up to something. And the 2 or 3 starts before he turned the ankle, he really did start throwing harder. It was more 92, 93, some 94s. That's what they want him to be, sitting 93, touching 94. And I think he thinks he can get there. They think he can get there. And he'll have one more start at AAA on next Tuesday, I think in Buffalo on the road. And then he's going to join the Phillies in Washington. And I would say that, obviously not this weekend, but the weekend after is a pretty good spot for Nola to come back. I forget what date is in the calendar. I think it's either August 17th or 18th. That's Sunday or Monday. He would slot back into the rotation, I would say, and that's their expectation for him.
You talk about him where he could slot back in. Obviously, wherever he slots back in is going to cause a bit of a ripple effect. What is going to be, if Nola comes back and he's anywhere close to the Nola that we know he can be, what does that mean for the rest of the pitching staff, Matt? Because, Taijuan Walker, he has been serviceable getting starts. We know there's been a lot of conversation about who would start in the postseason. John Middleton said to you guys in the media about the whole hey, we might only need 3 guys in the playoffs, right? So if Nola comes back and he is Aaron Nola again, what does that do? What is the ripple effect?
Well, if he's Aaron Nola again, then he's probably their Game 3 starter in the playoffs. I mean, seriously, there are enough questions right now about Ranger Suarez and Jesus Luzardo, that you could, if Nola comes back and comes back strong and really benefits from having, a few months off, rehabbing his injuries, he could be the third guy, and I do think it's possible they go to a 6-man rotation, maybe for 1 or 2 turns when Nola does come back. And that would be a way for them to get Wheeler and Sanchez, an extra day here and there. I don't think it's something they want to do for the rest of the season, but I do think it's something they could do, for a temporary period. But Walker would probably go back to the bullpen as a long reliever whenever Nola does come back, unless they do use him as a starter, 6th starter for maybe 1 or 2 turns. They are going to move some of those starters to the bullpen in October. Maybe they end up doing it at the end of September. Maybe Luzardo, they take a look at him as a reliever, sometime late in September. But again, given the standings, they need their starters right now because they need to win these games. It's not a slam dunk. And maybe if they do get a bigger lead and they feel more secure, then in September, middle September, late September, they start experimenting with things.
Matt, let's get into the outfield discussion a little bit here. Brandon Marsh, he's been hitting .302 since he returned from an injury on May 3rd. It's one of the it's in the top 10 in batting averages in the National League. Is there any possibility that he would potentially get more playing time, including against lefties, or do they really want to stick to that platoon structure they have going?
I think he could play more. And I think that my read on it moving forward, and we're going to see Friday, it'd be a really interesting test. Whatever you see in a lineup is going to tell you a lot. So they're facing a righty, Merrill Kelly, Friday in Texas. And I expect Harrison Bader to be playing in center field, and Marsh is in left field. And that would tell you that moving forward, I do think their plan is for Bader and Marsh to play more, which would mean Kepler is more of a bench role, would get an occasional start against a right-handed pitcher. It's possible they still continue to platoon Marsh at times against lefties. Once Alec Boehm returns, which I think is going to be soon, you could see Otto Kemp get a start here and there against a lefty in left field. But I really think that they like the idea of Bader in center on pretty much an everyday basis and giving Marsh a little more run here because he has hit for more power. He would play a plus left field. We saw it when he's been out there in the past, especially last year. His left field is really good. It's way better than his center field. I think there could be a huge value from him being in left. So we'll see what the lineup looks like on Friday, but I think it's going to be Bader and Marsh, and I think that's going to be their plan.
Matt Gelb from The Athletic joining us here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, check out all of his coverage of the Phillies in The Athletic as he covers the team throughout the year. Matt, you just mentioned about what you expect to happen. Well, a lot of us expected a lot of things to happen either at the deadline or after the deadline after, and it didn't happen, right? For example, there's the whole Justin Crawford thing. Does he come up? Does he not come up? Dombrowski months ago said that Andrew Painter might be coming up around this time. He's still not up here. I think a lot of people were wondering, does Max Kepler get cut from this team? He's still here. So, how much of it is you expect to happen and how much of it is if it doesn't happen, now we're getting another curveball thrown at us?
Well, Painter hasn't pitched well enough to come up. I think they expected him to be pitching better at this time, and he hasn't. So, and they haven't had a huge need either. If they had a big need in the rotation, maybe they would have pushed him, even if he wasn't pitching well at AAA. And as far as the outfield goes, had they not gone out and made a trade for Harrison Bader or for another righty hitting outfielder, I think you would have seen Justin Crawford come up. I think that was their plan. But in their mind, they left that door open because they wanted to see what happened at the trade deadline, and I think they got an upgrade in the outfield with Bader, who can play against lefties and righties. So I think Crawford remains in play. If there's an injury, I certainly suspect you'd see him up. I think if there's ineffectiveness, what they've done now, really, to me, is production matters now a lot more in the outfield in the majors. If someone does not produce in the next few weeks, like, they have an internal option to do. They can bring up Crawford and feel good about it. If Max Kepler is not producing over this long stretch, he's going to lose playing time, and I think that begins on Friday. Like, I do think he will lose playing time. So, we can have expectations, and yeah, we did have some, but I think part of it, the results do matter, especially when it comes to Painter.
Same with the Painter conversation. Are we getting to the point where we should just assume that he's just not going to come up at all this year?
I'm not there yet, simply because he's really talented, and there could be a need. I mean, if all of a sudden, if Wheeler does need, 2 or 3 weeks on the IL, and they have a need in the rotation, I still think Painter is in play. I do. And I know it's kind of been up and down. And my colleague, Charlotte Vaughn, she wrote a great story. She went up to Allentown and talked to Painter for a while after his most recent start. And certainly he's dealing with kind of that first year after pitching from Tommy John sort of syndrome that guys go through, where it's like his stuff has been there. I mean, he's sitting 97. He's touched 98. He's using all of his pitches. He's gotten some strikeouts, but he hasn't been able to command his pitches like he did in the past. And I think he's also learning, what more experienced and older hitters will do to his stuff. But I still think this guy is pretty close. And I think if they have a need, they would bring him up. So I'm not ready to rule him out totally. I'm not.
Matt, before I let you go, I want to touch base with you on one more point about the pitching staff, which is, we were talking about Painter, Nolan, all these guys. For you, what do you think is going to be the plan when everybody is up here and healthy? Not Painter, but I mean like when Nola's up here. What do you think the Phillies want to do? What do you think they want to end up happening when it comes to guys like Taijuan Walker and his role, and then potentially down the road? What do you think everyone's role is if everything was all things equal? Like, what is a realistic expectation for Philly fans? Because, Matt, we know the closer is. We know who the two setup guys are. It's Strom and Kerkering for Duran. That's what Thompson said. But what about the rest of the bullpen?
Are you saying for October or for like September, or for because it's going to be different, late August, September, and then in October?
Yeah, I'm talking about like August and September, because we know Alvarado is coming back. I'm assuming Walker's going to eventually go back to the bullpen too, right?
Yeah, that's like Alvarado's another wrinkle, right? Because you're going to have him on August 9th, 19th. But you won't have him in October. So, I think Alvarado's going to end up slotting in at some point with Kerkering and Strom, for the 7th and 8th innings. I think David Robertson is more of a middle reliever, kind of a 6th inning guy that comes in maybe when there's a jam. I think Walker, either he's a 6th starter for a couple turns or he becomes a long guy for the rest of the year. I have struggled finding roles for guys like Jordan Romano and Joe Ross. Like, I'm not sure that they're going to make it through the year on the roster. I just don't know if there's enough space for those kind of guys. And they've really used those guys in pretty low leverage, blowout kind of spots in the last few weeks when they've been healthy. So that's kind of what I'm envisioning. I think they want to stick with the 5 stars they have once Nola's back, their original intended rotation. Which they haven't really been able to use really at all this year because Nola got hurt right around the time Suarez got back. So I think that's their plan for August and September. And, yeah, that's going to change a lot going into October because they will have a little more flexibility and they won't have Alvarado.
For all of the coverage of the Phillies, go check out The Athletic. Matt Gelb covers the Phillies, and also his teammate Charlotte Barnes over there at The Athletic. They do a great job covering The Athletic. And if you're not subscribed to The Athletic, well, you should be like me and be subscribed to The Athletic. Check out all their great coverage over there. Matt, appreciate you jumping on. Take you up the great work. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, guys. Have a good weekend.